Hello and welcome to another episode of Panel on Panels, the podcast about all things comics and comics related. I'm your host, John Campbell. Joining me as always, my co-host, Mike Gergoni.
Greetings.
And Mr. Donovan Eilert.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
All right. We always give them a little time to answer so that they feel like they're part of the show. We were once again lucky enough to be joined by a guest today. We're very happy to welcome Dan Schkade to the show.
Hi.
Dan, people probably know now, or if you should, he's doing The Spirit right now for, who's the publisher on this?
Dynamite.
It is Dynamite, that's what I thought. Anytime I'm not sure, I want to, because I just wanted to jump out with Dynamite, but then
I appreciate that.
Yeah. The good
Dynamite
folks at
probably also appreciates that. Yeah, they're
Double
pretty
checking.
hot
I was
on
going to
it.
say, the good folks at Dynamite. So welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me on.
We had a little bit of we asked you about the pronunciation of your name, to be sure. It is Schkade, right?
That's right.
And then what's the origin of that?
It's fake, actually. My first ancestor to come to the country was a dude named Jochen Kubitz, who immigrated from Czechoslovakia right before the American Civil War. And like a lot of...
He picked a good time.
Yeah, no. My family is always pretty good at that. He, like a lot of Germanic folks did, he went to Texas where he was drafted pretty immediately into the Confederate Army as a corpsman. That sucked, and so he quit. He left. He deserted. And as will probably not surprise you, the Confederates were lynching anybody who deserted.
Right.
That was sort of their go-to,
Sure.
like, HR management technique.
They were big fans of lynching, yeah.
Yeah, it was they had T-shirts and everything.
Very effective.
And in fact, there's that big kerfuffle recently about a national debate about the Confederate flag, and how now a lot of people know, they didn't before, that what we think of as the Confederate flag wasn't their flag of their nation, quote unquote, but it was like a flag that the troops flew.
The battle flag.
Exactly. And so people who flew the Stars and Bars tried to kill Johann, my ancestor. So he switched his name in that beautiful pre-Facebook era from Jochen Kubitz to John Schkade, which is a bastardization of Škoda, the town in Czechoslovakia that he was from. So, it's a made-up name to not get lynched by rednecks.
Wow.
That is the coolest possible answer.
Yeah.
That's way cooler than like German.
When the debate started, and people were saying no white person should be ashamed of the Stars and Bars. I'm like, no, that my genetic existence is contingent on those guys not being able to do their stuff.
Yeah. My existence is based on shame.
Join the club.
Right.
So we now have the origin of your name, but one of the things we always like to ask people is sort of their origins as just comic fans. Actually, do you remember a specific comic that sort of clicked you into the medium as a kid or something?
If I remember correctly, the first comic that I ever held in my hands and read was a Superman issue that my mom bought me from a grocery store. Because we are all the last generation who, as young children, had their parents buy them comics in grocery stores.
Yeah.
And I knew Batman from the cartoons and whatnot, and superheroes were always just a little bit more exciting than anything else that was going on. But that was the first time I kind of held a brand new comic in my hand, a comic that came out that month. And he had the long hair. It was long hair Superman.
This was mullet era Superman.
Correct.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have, like a baby chicken just imprinting on the nearest maternal figure. That's what Superman looks like to me. He's got the long...
Still?
Yeah.
Whenever you think Superman,
I think of Superman. I think of...
Blue mullet.
Yeah, I think of Jose Luis Garcia Lopez drawing that Superman.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He was a Superman with super hair.
I had a poster of that Superman in my room.
We all did.
For years. Yeah.
Most all of us did.
Well, Gergoni's our resident Lex Luthor on the show, not a Superman fan at all. So
All I'm saying is Superman is evil and he needs to be destroyed. That's all I'm saying.
Well, anyway, this particular issue, it was a Christmas time issue, and there's this ex-LexCorp employee whose his wife left him because some sort of LexCorp battle soldier experiment he went through made him an abusive dick.
of course.
And so he got a lot of he took some money to write a book about the dirty insides of LexCorp, but he's just not a very good writer, and they don't really want his book. So he decides this book will sell millions if I give it an awesome last chapter, which is I kill Superman. So they have a fight, and eventually he realizes what he's become because Lois brings his wife and daughter to him, and he's like, I can't let my family down like this. Anyway, it was the most rote Superman.
Somewhere
plot.
in there, he learns the true meaning of Christmas.
They do learn the true meaning of Christmas. Superman lets him off the hook. Superman doesn't take him to the cops.
What?
Because it's Christmas.
Did you?
For those listening at home, the cheap plastic chair that I gave him to sit in just was structurally compromised.
Sort of snapped a little bit.
But we are
I
all
just thought he was
still-
so entertained by the story that he went back and
He lets him off the hook for all that.
Yeah, Superman just decides, this guy's got PTSD, he's got stuff going on.
Does he take him to get help, or does he just let him go on society?
If my memory serves, Superman just thinks, his wife's back on his side now. I'm sure he's going to be okay.
I love the idea that he thinks he could A, kill Superman,
Yeah.
and then B, once he does that, just like, okay, now time to go finish my book.
Yeah. He's going to murder Superman to move copies of his book.
Well, I gotta buy this book. The guy who wrote it killed Superman. What if he kills me?
No, you don't even pretend like you wouldn't buy the shit out of that book.
It's his like, if I did it, this is how sort of a thing.
right. There's something that's not referenced enough. That book that never got published. It's true. I like the idea though that he would be like potentially sitting in a jail cell, but have
All the royalties.
yeah.
Well, then I went back and read that issue again when I was a teenager. And, I was really into the Punisher and all the
Yeah.
Garth Ennis stuff. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And now as an adult, I go back and think, well, a mentally ill man would think that he could kill Superman with copies of his book.
Become full circle.
And lo and behold, he was not successful.
That's an interesting. Well, that's always. I'm always fascinated by when people go back and read that stuff or watch whatever from childhood and how much of it. I mean, you've talked about that a lot.
Yeah,
Johnny.
no, my personal quest to go back and destroy most of my childhood systematically over the last few years. Most of it has been successful. A couple of things have been like, ooh, hey, I had pretty good taste. A lot of things have been like, ooh, no, I had terrible taste. But Gargoyles, I was pleasantly surprised.
What was one of the worst things that doesn't hold up?
Oh, so there was a really bad, like, almost sort of anime that was basically a Gundam knockoff called Zoids.
Yep.
Oof, wow, that does not hold up.
Nope.
You're familiar with Zoids?
I'm familiar with, yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry to out you on the podcast. I don't know.
being
we could cut that
familiar
out
with
if we
something
need. Yeah,
terrible?
I mean, well, if it's as bad as Gorgoni says.
Yeah.
Specifically
Just
being
even-
familiar with Zoids.
just even knowing it is a crime, apparently. So you clicked in with this sort of Superman comic. Was it always superheroes then with you and stuff as a kid? Was there?
Yeah. I liked, they look cool. They
Oh,
look
yeah.
cooler than anything else that was going on in my little world. I liked how focused the motivation was. The point of any sort of a Batman cartoon or a Fantastic Four comic or something is we were supposed to watch something terrible get started with the knowledge that any moment now the guys in the really simple sleek costumes are going to come and just make the world make sense again. There's that writing adage that in the first act you get your protagonist up in a tree and then you find a way to get them down. Superhero comics are more like Act 1, somebody just dumps the trash can out on the floor. And then the rest of the comic is the Justice League being like, well, come on, don't be like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly it. I mean, I think I never thought about that, but yeah, that simplicity of that there's something about that. I mean, I've talked about the book, Ben Saunders' book, Do the Gods Wear Capes? I mean, that comes down to that sort of the simplicity of those mythological kind of things like that as well. And yeah, they look cool as well. They are gods in capes.
I think it also speaks to why we're never going to see any like true shakeup, especially in the big two. Like people want that simplicity of we know where Batman stands. We don't necessarily want Jim Gordon to be Batman forever. Eventually, it's going to be Bruce Wayne again because that's what we get back to every single time.
All returns to the status quo eventually.
Right.
And there is something, I mean, as much as, even we complain about it sometimes on this show, it's like, do you really not want it to, to a certain extent? I mean, there is something to be said for, the comfort in, yes, Bruce Wayne will be Batman.
Well, there is something else that's really important about superheroes, and that is the idea that there's somebody who wants somebody who's really good at something,
Right.
whether it's escaping from stuff like Mr. Miracle or rending steel in your bare hands like Power Girl. But the idea
That is her superpower, yes.
rending steel in her bare hands. That yes. Oh, also she can fly. But the idea that you have this great ability and you disguise yourself, wear a mask, take off your glasses, whatever. But you disguise yourself as a symbol. You don't want the credit. You don't want anyone to know that you did it, but you want everybody to know that somebody did it.
Right.
It's not working in the shadows. It's not this invisible hand shaping society. It's a very clear symbol, stopping corruption, saving people from a burning, I don't know, hot dog stand.
Any number of burning things in comics.
I was spoiled for choice.
House, trees, wolves, bears.
Same people from Burning Wolves?
You'd be
Would
surprised.
you not want to be safe from
Flame wolves?
Sure,
Are you
yeah.
just going to take on the burning
Yeah,
wolves?
keep
no,
that up,
I
and
don't
we're not
know.
going to save you from
I'm
burning
just
wolves,
saying.
John. You can take them on yourself.
I clearly haven't read that issue of Superman, so I don't know.
Throw in an alien parasite, and we've got my 3 biggest fears right there.
That's a very specific version of a DNR. If I'm ever attacked by flaming wolves, just let it happen.
Well, was Superman, or who were your sort of superheroes then that you really latched onto?
Well, when you're a kid, there's only 8 superheroes, and so of the 8, I liked Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman. But
Godzilla, the traditional superheroes.
exactly, yes. But then as I got a little bit older and experienced more superheroes, I started to really like the detective-y kind of superheroes. Like I loved The Question.
Oh, yes.
I loved Daredevil, and that was my way into the Punishers. Garth Ennis wrote a very detective-type Punisher who was very methodical and all that. And there was darkness and violence because I was a teenager, and that's what I was like.
Punisher's come up a few times on this show with guests, and there's something about that character.
You're a teenager. You're impressionable, and this person has all the guns in the world.
Yeah.
Well, there used
It's
to be
like
that-
that's why Rambo sold so many tickets. It's like this guy's awesome. He's got guns. What else do you need to
There
know?
is something. I think I talked about it on the show before. The catharsis of that character of or a Rambo, where it's just like here's a guy who's gonna he's gonna get angry and then he's gonna solve his problems with a big machine gun.
The Punisher is the ultimate distillation of the superhero in a certain sense. He is this larger than life persona. He has skills we don't have. He will always show up to make things right. The only difference is
For any given value of right.
yes, right. The only difference is that the Punisher, because he's a comic book superhero, no matter what else he is, he's a comic book superhero. That means that there's always going to be more gangsters and things.
Right.
So all the murders he does doesn't matter. He is no more effective than Speedball even.
Right. First mention of Speedball on the show.
I'm sorry, I prefer penance.
This is a comic book podcast. So.
And that's what I liked about the Garth Ennis series. That's my way into it. Was a lot of it was about how, if somebody was killing the members of the mafia for 30 years, there's no mafia left.
Right.
The Punisher beat the mafia.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh yeah. No, that Ennis run. I don't think anyone's gonna. If anyone wants to debate about whether or not that's the best Punisher run,
That's
I'll
one of the
take 'em on.
comics that I've cried while reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an arc of there that's just very, very sad.
Which one are you talking about?
It's called Long Cold Dark. A one of the few recurring villains in Ennis's run, a guy named Barracuda, this big mean motherfucker. He finds out that Frank Castle fathered a daughter with someone over the course of the run, and kidnaps that daughter. It's a very simple action movie type plot.
Sure.
But over the course of the plot, the Punisher, you see him kind of get ready for the possibility that he's going to find this girl alive and then have to figure out what comes next. And that's kind of terrifying for him because his whole life has been built around his family is lost. He's become this other thing. And so now having the chance for family again, it's almost like he's worried.
He's removed himself from humanity in such a way, and he's not really prepared to reapproach that humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that's touched on a little bit in earlier parts of the run. He has this recurring dream where he kills every single criminal in the world and just keeps on killing people. Like his idea of what becomes a criminal gets lower and lower and lower. And it's just a dream. But it goes to this idea that he's completely removed himself from humanity. I'm talking about the Punisher too much. The point is,
That's not possible.
We haven't talked about the. I mean, I'm a huge Punisher fan, so
Okay.
to hear, and also what I like about this is, because people, I've had to defend him a lot because people go like, well, yeah, it's just an angry guy who kills people. It's like there is depth to these stories,
Yeah,
especially if you read the Ennis stuff.
now, at the end of the run, he has defeated. He has murdered the bejesus out of Barracuda, and he's. Oh, by the way, he murders Barracuda in my high school.
Really?
What?
Yeah, in the final showdown takes place in San Diego, and the Punisher murders Barracuda in a school called Torrey Pines.
Yeah.
And it looks nothing like the actual school because it's a guy from, I believe, Ireland describing it to an artist from, I don't even know where Goran Parlov is from.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Punisher murders Barracuda in the gym of my high school. Anyway, so there's this...
I'm sure there's a plaque on the wall somewhere that's just like Barracuda murdered here, 2000 whatever.
Yeah, on this date, Frank Castle murdered.
It's just his gold teeth mounted on the wall. And so there's a scene the Punisher is in this motel room, just really beat to crap. Like he's lost a finger, I think, and he's all swollen up. And his daughter is just on the bed playing, and he's just sort of staring at her. And you see him realize that he can't go back, that he will be an unsafe parent. And it's not that old rote thing like I can't let the people I love know that I am the Blue Beetle, it will kill them. It's a very real understanding of somebody that he has developed a personality disorder, that he's not a safe person to be around anymore. And so he gets in his car, he drives back to New York, and the last line of the series is or the last line of the story is that he's driving into the long, cold dark that I've made of my life. Wow. That was to have that deep, sacrificial humanity from Frank Castle, alias the Punisher.
Yeah.
That was huge. That was powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've talked quite a bit about Ennis there, but who were some of the other writers or artists that really influenced you or inspired you?
There's one I'm going to say last, but
Okay.
Denny O'Neil.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his question. See, that's the thing. When I'm a teenager,
Yeah.
it's the Punisher and the question.
That's interesting. Now,
Yeah.
the question is a character who does not come up a lot on the show.
Oh, I love
but
the Question.
The question is super awesome.
Philosophical character. The Denny O'Neil question series is a reboot of the Spirit. Almost one to one. Everything you have in the Spirit, you have in the Question, and he tells these really slice of life stories. Has everybody here seen Luther, the BBC show?
Oh, yeah.
The Question is exactly like Luther. If you like one, watch or read the other. And at the heart of it is the protagonist, Vic Sage, or Charlie Victor Sanchez, I think is his actual name, as he oscillates between being controlled by anger or being controlled by curiosity, this constant struggle to find some kind of peace. And it's beautiful. Anyway, so Denny O'Neil, love him.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I'll
one of
have
the
to track that
greats of
down
all
because
time.
the only way I actually know the question is through one of my favorite cartoons is Justice League Unlimited.
Oh, yeah. Jeffrey Combs doing a really
yeah.
awesome voice. And a very different character. There's like 4 distinct iterations of the Question running around, one of which is
True about many DC characters.
very much so, yes. But the Denny O'Neil one is... And then that's the one Greg Rucka went on to write in 52.
Yes.
and
That's where I primarily know him from.
Oh, yeah. Oh, amazing story of his in 52. Anyway, so love him. Obviously, Grant Morrison, The Filth is one of my very favorite
Oh,
comics.
yeah.
And also The Mystery Play and Sebastian O. And then, The Invisibles. We all love The Invisibles.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In fact, his Batman run
Oh, yeah.
has one of the most exciting moments of reading monthly comics that I'd ever had. It's during... And it doesn't really hold up when you go back and read it in trade. But every month, this new bit of the mystery coming out, that the momentum of that was really powerful. And at the apex of the Batman R.I.P. story, Batman has been like his identity has been revealed to the Joker, and he's been poisoned. He's dying. All of his friends and enemies. I mean, all of his enemies have come together. All of his friends have been incapacitated or captured or killed or mutilated or something. And it ends on. I mean, that penultimate issue ends on Batman has almost certainly died, and I swear to God, the next issue took like 18 months to come out. It felt, and the last issue of that run opens. It's just black panels as white slit Batman eyes slowly open, and this little line. But of course, that's the thing about Batman. Batman thinks of everything. And you turn the page, and Batman, he's in a straitjacket, he's in a coffin, he's underground. But that little moment of, oh, you thought he was dead? No.
It's Batman.
Yeah. Right. Now watch him get out of this. That was so
absolutely.
thrilling.
I love that run.
That Batman R.I.P. is one of my favorite Batman stories, and that moment, that's really struck me as well, because it is. I mean, that's like because we always talk about that on here. It's like he's the one character where I can go like, why did that? Because Batman. I mean, like that's why he's the coolest to me. Is like there's nothing he's not ready for. I mean, because they go into things in the comics where like he's immuned himself to every known poison and all this stuff, and he's learned how to sleep in micro naps and stuff like that. And just like he doesn't have superpowers, but he might as well. I mean, really, like he's almost that's what makes him better than all these others. He just willed himself some powers. It seems like.
Well, one of my other favorite writers is actually Matt Wagner, who's doing the Spirit Sandman Mystery Theater. They did with Guy Davis and Steve Siegel and some other artists. Steve Siegel's the writer. Guy Davis is the artist, obviously. Back in the 90s is my actual favorite comic.
Really?
Love Sandman Mystery Theater.
Cool.
And Matt also wrote probably my favorite Batman scene of anything. He did these two miniseries that were collectively called, I think, Dark Moon Rising, based on early Golden Age Batman stories. The first one was Batman and the Monster Men. The second one was Batman and the Mad Monk.
Yeah,
and he wrote and drew them both.
Great stuff.
So all I'm doing is recapping comic books.
Hey, that's what we do.
Okay, right on.
You're fine.
Yeah, this will fit right in with the show.
Be like, oh, they got a fourth panelist. Oh, is this guy a new guy? Okay.
You gonna say something?
Well, it's not necessarily about the fact that you're like just going over comics. It's expressing how excited you are about comics is always. I don't know. I love seeing that light in people's eyes. It's not about just telling people why they should like a thing. It's telling them why you like a thing.
Yeah.
And that's like, I'm hearing all of these books that you're talking about. It's like, oh, I haven't read that yet. Maybe I should go find that. Like, I want to go read this Run of the Question, or like, what's his name's run on Punisher I've never read before.
You've never read Ennis's run?
I'm not a huge Punisher guy.
That's right. I know. You and I have talked about this at length.
It's not that I don't like the Punisher.
Right.
I love the Punisher in certain things, but I haven't gone out of my way to read
You've
Punisher.
more read him
I hear that.
in showing up in other people's
Right,
stuff.
like when he showed up in Civil War, I was just like, oh, shit just got real.
Punisher in Civil War is pretty awesome.
I think that a discussion of your likes and preferences should not be an aggressive conversation.
Right.
So I like that. Anyway,
Yeah,
so this scene, Batman and the Monster Men. Oh, so Batman is tracking down Hugo Strange, who's been turning people into these 10-foot grisly, almost brain-dead monster men. At the end of the previous issue, Batman has tracked Hugo Strange down, but has been hit in the neck with a dart, some sort of drugged dart, by Strange's henchmen, and thrown into this enclosure where they're keeping these three huge, cannibalistic, bloodthirsty monster men. And so the next issue, immediately Batman tries to just run past them and escape, but they grab him. They're huge. Even though he's very, very fast, they just have 8-foot long arms, and they grab him. And right away, he loses his cape, his boot, and his belt. And the monsters are closing in. He's about to kind of lose consciousness because of the dart in his head. And the contents of the belt have spilled out on the stone floor, including these gas pellets that have gone off. And eventually those will sedate the monster men, but they're going to sedate Batman a lot quicker. So he makes a desperate grab for the rebreather that's come out of the belt, and the monster men are grabbing for him. He just has to jump blind and roll away with something. So he does, and when he springs up, he looks in his hand. He's come out away with handcuffs, and he's running out of time. He's got to find a way out of this somehow. One boot, no belt, no cape, and he sees a chain on the floor and an iron grate on the floor. And so he loops the chain through the grate, handcuffs the chain together, and then loops it around one of the monster men's necks, and then like hits him in the eye or something. So they go for another one, pull the grate out of the floor, and he dives into the sewer and escapes. He escapes from certain doom from 3 giant cannibals with a pair of handcuffs.
Yep.
That's the most Batman scene I've ever read.
It's so cool.
Absolutely. Well, because I think people forget that, like, when Batman was being created, like, the influences were, I mean, Zorro comes very much present, but Sherlock Holmes was just as much an influence there at all. I mean, that deductive reasoning and I feel like that gets lost, especially when people see him in the movies and stuff. He doesn't do that much kind of stuff like that in the films.
He punches guys in the head, John.
Right. I mean, and that's awesome. I love it. And he doesn't even do it that well in the movies. We can get into discussion about how he fights in the films, but that'd be a whole other episode. But I mean, yeah, this sort of thing. Like they make it, dark vigilante, but it's like, no, world's greatest detective.
Yeah. Somebody said Batman has the brains of Sherlock Holmes, the body of Tarzan, and the swag of the Shadow.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Hashtag Batman's got swag.
So we've talked about some of the things that have influenced you and stuff. At what point did you really start to seriously think about a career in comics?
Well, I thought that it wasn't really a career you could have. Both my parents were academics, and I just didn't feel like it was. I also didn't feel like it was. I don't know how else to say it, but
Financially responsible?
well, definitely that. But also like socially responsible. Like I felt like it might be kind of a frivolous pursuit. But eventually I comics was the only thing that actually held my attention. The only thing I liked doing. The only thing I put independent study into doing. And so I kind of came clean to my folks. I'm like, this is actually just the only thing I really want to do. And they were like, fuck it, we just want you to be good at something. Like, try. And then, pretty much a month after that, I had created my first, I was 17 at that point, I created my first 22-page complete comic book issue. I reached out to Batten Lash, a cartoonist who lives in San Diego. He does supernatural law and also writes a lot for Archie.
We do love Archie on this podcast.
Yeah?
Oh,
Big
yeah.
Archie fans.
Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
You don't like Superman. You don't like Archie. I'm going to question whether or not you like America, sir.
Look, there are certain aspects of both Superman and Archie that I appreciate. I'm just not totally convinced that they're for me. That's all.
All right.
Batten, incidentally, wrote maybe the greatest graphic novel of the 90s, which is The Punisher Meets Archie.
Oh, yes.
That specific run has come up on the show before.
I bring that up all the time. Just the cover of that alone is incredible. The Punisher at whatever the prom or the junior dance or whatever it is, and what Archie's saying, like, boy, I knew there'd be a chaperone, but this is ridiculous.
And I just love how they were both like drawn in completely separate. Like there were 2 separate artists.
Oh,
one
yeah.
to draw Archie, one to draw the Punisher.
Yeah,
I think it was like Sal Buscema who was doing.
It absolutely was. Yeah.
Really solid.
Yeah. But so you brought the comic to
Oh,
this.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had met him at a blood drive the previous year, and I just kinda
Okay.
said,
That's maybe the best sentence
yeah,
I met
I've ever
met him at a
heard.
blood drive. I was just hanging out.
Waiting for the cookies and orange juice, right?
Anyway, this was my dad's suggestion. He's like, all right, well, you've made a comic. What next? What do you do? So I reached out to Batten, and he showed me how to make ash cans, like really cheaply made zines. He sort of instilled in me an understanding that you need to do work that sucks for a while until you do work that's good.
Right.
You need to be not only willing to kind of fall on your face first couple times, but you got to be willing to fall on your face and show it to people.
Yeah.
Willingly falling on your face and say, "Look at me! Look at me! Look at me!" Every creative endeavor ever.
Right? So I took that to Comic-Con that year and just showed it to people, showed it to anybody who would look at it. and this gal who was helping me out, who was, just being the person who was more confident than me to, help me meet people, put a copy in the hands of Neil Gaiman at the Eisner Awards.
Whoa.
And I like she
That's
had,
a name that inspires that response.
Yeah.
Whoa.
She had said, he's right there. The awards are over. You should go over and talk to him. I'm like, I'm not going to do
Are you
that.
kidding me? That's Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Who am I to such as he?
Like I'm fairly precocious. Like I could go up to most people, but Neil Gaiman just like I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So she just did it for me, and then like one of the things where there's a pantomime show where I look over, and she's talking to him, and then he looks over, and she like does the hand motion, come over here thing. Anyway, so I had a brief conversation with him. I'm not going to talk about what we talked about, but there was something about the way that he made me feel that I thought I have to have it within me to at some point in 20 years make somebody else feel as safe and encouraged as he's making me feel right now. And that honestly was probably it. I mean, I had the interest, I had some sort of ability, I had some drive, but there's something about that made me think, I got to be able to have this.
Yeah. Once you got the go-ahead from Neil Gaiman, it was just like, go.
We've talked about on the show before, like anytime we see him in interviews or read his work or reviews on things, it is always so encouraging and so positive and so much like, I'm just thrilled that I get to do this.
He's that chef from Ratatouille.
Yes.
Who's like, anybody can be I haven't seen the film in forever. I can't do the voice. But
right.
he is that character.
Absolutely. I mean, we've always talked about how, we have so much respect for him as a writer, but also just as a champion of the industry and of creativity in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy's amazing. And if he's out there, come on the show. If he happens to randomly listen to this episode or be like, hey, that name looks, I think I talked to that kid a bunch of years ago.
Every Neil Gaiman adjacent hashtag forever for this episode and just see if he listens.
Have you ever come across him again?
No, I never have. Surprisingly, yes.
He was your magic man at the beginning of the quest who starts you on the. He was your call to adventure. Was Neil Gaiman?
I will write something morose when he dies. That's probably what's going to happen next.
Well, hopefully not next. I mean, hopefully there's stuff in between then.
It's the spirit and then that. What was that comic, though, that you were taking around?
It was called The Foul. The Foul was this, Batman-y vigilante who solved supernatural crimes in Paris City. The hook of him was that he was a paranoid schizophrenic who was medicated. And so as opposed to, is he crazy or is he sane? Well, no, he's a mentally ill man who has somebody who's almost like his live-in sponsor who makes sure he takes his medication, helps him out in these cases. And I don't know, people seemed to like it. He was kind of a little bit of a lackadaisically homicidal character.
So I take it FOUL, not FOWL. It wasn't a duck themed.
He was. He had a beak mask. And
That's awesome.
Kind of looked like Dr. Midnight. And,
Oh, awesome.
So cool.
Yeah. To be completely honest about it, I came across the original ash can. Somebody showed it to me at a show a couple months ago. I was like, oh my God, it's The Foul. You have this. You're one of the people who ordered it off DeviantArt when I was 18. And I happened to have a copy of Matt Wagner and John K. Snyder's Dr. Midnight next to me.
Great book.
And I just opened them up next to each other, and I'm like, oh, this is so shameless.
Wow, yeah. And so did that get some attention then, The Foul?
I did it for, I started when I was 17. I did it until I was 20. And I got like fan art from it. There are people who remember it. When I moved up here, I went up and did it again with Jesse Snavlin writing it, and that got a little bit of attention as well. And I love The Foul. I love the character. He's just he's a fun mascot for what I like to draw.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, as you were sort of talking about the things that influenced you, now I've read just a little bit of The Foul, actually.
What?
Yeah. I mean, you can find some of it online.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, just a bit in some of my research into your stuff. But as you're describing this, the stuff you're interested in, I completely see it. It makes but not just the foul. We should talk about. I mean, I don't know how much time was in here, but also San Hannibal.
Oh yeah, San Hannibal. That was the one that really got attention. That was the first comic I did to have diamond distribution. First comic to get reviewed by people. First comic to I did a signing for that.
Cool.
Where people actually had bought it in single issues and showed up for the trade. San Hannibal was a great experience.
So how did that start or come about?
The J.D. Faith, who drew the first issue of San Hannibal back years ago, asked me if I had something on the back burner that I wanted to write for him to draw. And San Hannibal came out of that. He didn't want to... He got... What was it? Oh, yeah, it was that we pitched it and nobody wanted it.
Oh.
So he had drawn the first issue, and then when Pop Goes the Icon, the Vegas-based publisher that ended up publishing it, decided they wanted to do it, JD had just gone on to other ventures, and so I decided to draw it with Jesse Snavlin coloring and lettering it.
And the coloring is so specific in that book. I mean, each issue is basically a single color, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a single kind of neon Pantone.
Yeah.
And this was Jesse's idea. As the series goes on, the first issue is this neon pink. The second issue is very bright blue. The third is yellow, and so forth. And as the series progresses, elements from the previous issues retain their colors. So you can kind of trace the elements of the case as it goes forth. Then the last issue is almost full color as it all kind of comes together. San Hannibal was a wonderful experience. I got to, I love Raymond Chandler, and I was able to really do a kind of updated Philip Marlowe type character.
That definitely comes through in that book for sure.
I'm glad. And the thing that was fun, and I think people reacted to, was that Avery, the lead of San Hannibal and our Private Eye protagonist, he doesn't carry a gun and doesn't throw a punch in the whole thing. He's a non-violent, hard-boiled detective.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Right? And it's not like he's a passive, placid guy.
Certainly not,
He's kind of prickly. It's just that his form of machismo is that he's 5'5", and he is not in good shape. And sometimes it's time to get the shit kicked out of you. But he's less...
His power is he can take a punch.
Exactly. And he's just less interested in bodily harm coming to him than he is solving a case and getting paid.
Right.
And that was a very interesting character to write because he's constantly in peril.
Yeah.
Several times in the series, he has to be saved by forces beyond his control. It's almost like crime noir cosmic horror in a way.
I am super on board with this.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I liked San Hannibal quite a bit.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
What was that like for that first experience, for people to show up at a signing and stuff like that? I mean,
incredible, flattering. I was really excited to see how many different kinds of people were into it. From just really shy teenage guys to awesome metalhead gals and just moms. It seemed like a lot of people could find something they dug in San Hannibal. I have a huge shame about San Hannibal, though. San Hannibal is a series with a lot of maybe even more major female roles than male roles, and a lot of different ages and types of women. San Hannibal fails the Bechdel test.
Is that right?
No two women talk to each other in I think the entire comic.
That's so strange.
Or at least they don't talk to anybody about each other about anything substantial. And the funny thing is, the core clue of the entire series is that two women had a conversation about something other than a man that we don't see on the page.
For those who don't know, that's basically the Bechdel test, is if two female characters talk about something in any fictive work. Two named female characters talk about something that isn't like the male protagonist or a male of some kind.
Yeah, San Hannibal just falls on its face, failing the Bechdel test. It does pass Kelly Sue DeConnick's sexy lamp tests, which stipulates that if the female part can be replaced by a sexy lamp and the integrity of your story does not change, you are a hack. San Hannibal
Yeah.
passes the sexy lamp test.
I was gonna say because there's definitely, I mean, there's a lot of strong female characters in that book, for sure. So that's always the thing about when we get into these Bechdel tests, and they're more. I think they're more useful in a broad sense than they are.
A broad sense,
I
John?
knew the second it came out of my mouth that you were going to say something about it.
I'm going to Power Girl Ren steel around your head in a minute, man.
But I mean,
Gonna bare hands.
yeah, it's just like how many things fail as opposed to on an individual level. Because I mean, I always think people talk about like Gravity doesn't, pass it as a movie or whatever.
Right.
But it's like, but that whole movie is about a woman, It's like,
I'd like to think that San Hannibal passes the spirit of the law, if not the letter.
Exactly. And I think it does. Speaking of the spirit,
Oh, man.
Whoa, strong segue.
How did you make that happen, John? That was incredible the way you just like reverse engineered that.
Okay, before I started this project, I did not realize that like 98% of the phrases I use have the word spirit in them.
Really?
Yeah. I cannot use any colloquialisms now without somebody being like, "Oh, you mean like the spirit?" No.
I'm so happy you said it because on this show, most of our transitions are very clunky and just like, so you do this now. So the fact that I can actually have any kind of transition is amazing. You were drawing the spirit, which is pretty. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I'm into it.
Yeah. Were you into the spirit? I mean, he seems like a character that fits with a lot of the characters you were into.
He's really up my alley. He's actually the guy who knocked me out of my Punisher funk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and when I say Punisher, I mean like
Punisher Funk is my 70s disco band.
it's just silence punctuated by people dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's Punisher fun.
We draw huge crowds.
They do not go home.
And when I mean the Punisher, I also mean things like the Shadow,
Yeah.
who is fancy Punisher.
For sure. Yeah. He's Punisher in a tuxedo.
I'm kidding, Matt. I know that the Shadow's more than that. The spirit on the face looked like something in that vein. He was noirish. He was a vigilante. He had no powers. He solved crimes, and I knew just from being in comics that he was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I read the
Something about that Eisner fellow.
yeah Eisner, maybe it's French. I don't know. I read the Darwin Cook series when it came out. That was my introduction to the character, and obviously Darwin Cook's super talented, and I dug it. I dug the idea of the character, but I kind of felt like something wasn't quite right about it. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like when you see I just used this analogy in a different interview, so I can't say it now. The point is, I didn't know the source material, but I could feel that there was something that was left of center on it.
May I? The 1998 Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie.
Oh no.
Exactly.
Yes!
And I love me some Matthew Broderick. It's not about that,
Oh, no.
Darwin.
But something is clearly off with that movie.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's called Godzilla, and you're just like, but it's not quite. I mean, Jean Reno's here, but something's not quite.
It's Godzilla-ish.
You've been waiting a long time to bring that up.
I've been waiting a little while to bring that up.
But let's see. I was talking about something.
The Darwin Cook run to the Will Eisner.
I can derail any conversation with Godzilla.
Yeah.
But after that, I picked up the DC Best of Spirit they put out, and it had a lot of the most important stories from the origin in 1940 through. I think the last one in that collection is Bring In Sans Serif, which is from 1947, I think. Doesn't matter. Point is, it was my introduction to the Spirit as something that could go from blisteringly dark, like, a guy gets gangrene in his hands and dies alone after killing his girlfriend on a deserted island because he thinks the spirit is after him, to a story about two dudes who look a lot alike and switch lives. And even that story is about an abused husband, so
Yeah.
there's a darkness that permeates it. But there's something about it that, I don't know, kind of made me then go back and look at whatever Rick Remender thing I was reading and go, this is good, this is cool, but there's more than this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just dove into it after that. I bought all the kitchen sink reprints I could do. And it was really cool to see the art in black and white, classic stories like Showdown with the Octopus and School for Girls. And I just came to really love the Spirit. So when, Brennan told me, I'm going to try and get you in the running to draw the spirit with your actual childhood hero, Matt Wagner, and me, your extremely close friend. I was like, yeah, okay. That's cool, what if?
But on the inside, what was...
On the inside, you know that part of 2001 where like it's all like colors and he's a baby all of a sudden, and
Yeah.
it's like that.
I know. I got it.
Actually, that's a joke. It was hope in a sea of blind terror.
Yeah. I mean, so what is the process? I mean, I'm always fascinated by this. Like, how do you go about getting the job? I mean, obviously you knew Brennan.
Yeah, I knew Brennan. We met socially at pub trivia, actually.
Oh, cool.
And that's another thing I owed to Jessie Snavlin. She was a quiz mistress with a company called Geeks Who Drink, and they did pub quiz. They continue to do pub quiz.
Yeah,
in the
they
area.
do stuff all over the place.
Yeah.
The Bullseye over by my place has that every Thursday.
Oh, yeah. This one was at Tonic Lounge, which is now the Panic Room on Sandy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Portland references.
Right. Hey, everybody in the PDX area.
Yeah.
Just pretend I said, I don't know, Fuddruckers, if you're anyone else. Anyway, so we met there. We had known each other for about a year. We had worked on a Dark Horse Presents project together. And he just lobbied really hard for his dad, Matt Wagner, to consider me. And so I got an offer to try out. I was supposed to produce 2 splash pages and a sequential page. There was no script, just like make something up. So I did, and the stuff I did was good to okay. And I got like good work, but they're not going to go for you on this. Then about a month later, I said, well, maybe you. We'll see. Draw. We now have a sample script people are drawing from. Do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard back, Dynamite's still kind of cool on you. And that happened, I think, 2 or 3 more times. And then one of the other times it was like, okay, well, maybe you do some character designs. And then, oh man, the character designs was a heart-wrenching, mind-wrecking process. Because every time I turned in a design, especially with Ellen Dolan was the one that took a long time to get right. And every time Matt sent it back, I was sure that I was losing the gig, that he was going to like lose interest in me. Mm-hmm. And then like the last iteration of it, it was between me and this other artist who looked a lot like me and had worked with Dynamite before.
Doppelganger.
Yes, a doppelganger, if you will. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to get it. That's fine. But in the end, Matt, and we were getting kind of up to the wire when we had to start actually making the book if it was going to come out on time. Matt said, we're waiting for proper approval, but start doing thumbnails. And that was like, then it was the actual 2001 moment.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my God, I think I like became the animated version of myself for a minute. And Aha started playing. I was so happy. I was so happy.
So I mean, yeah, and that is incredible. I mean, because it's incredible. I don't have to tell you that, but I mean, how do you even start to approach that? I mean, obviously, because you don't want to just imitate Will Eisner, obviously, in that approach, but but at the same time, that those images are so indelible that how did you go about approaching the design of the spirit?
Well, the initial spirit I was drawing kind of looked like Gabriel Macht from the movie.
Oh, sure.
Like strong but kind of more slender. Mm-hmm. And I was informed a bit by a lot of the iterations of the spirit that have come after Eisner, where people tend to draw him kind of like an average-sized guy. Mm-hmm. They draw him 5'11", maybe like 175. Mm-hmm. And then Matt pointed out in the actual Spirit comics, like, you get that this guy is like 3 feet wide, right? Like, look at his neck. If he walked through the door, like, he would look like this insane homunculus. The Spirit's huge.
Yeah.
And he should be, because he's like getting concrete blocks broken over his head and he's fighting 9 guys.
Right.
And so he had me kind of bulk my spirit up a little bit. And the more my spirit started to look like the Eisner stuff, I started to really work backwards from the actual Eisner models instead of trying to figure out, what does my Commissioner Dolan look like? It was more like, well, what does Commissioner Dolan look like?
Right.
Let's draw this character. Let's pretend that maybe I don't have a design sense on par with Will Eisner. And so then it became, instead of me trying to figure out, how Dan Schkade is going to do this, it became more like translating a foreign work.
Interesting.
Like I think of Lolita a lot. Lolita, Nabokov had very specific language when he was writing Lolita, and so the translation doesn't necessarily translate that language one-to-one. There's a slight alteration to maintain the lyricism, the mood of it.
Right.
So the ability of the translator comes through, but it's Nabokov's Lolita. Man, I
Right.
should have picked a less creepy book for this. But that's how I started seeing my role in this. I mean, the series is called Will Eisner's The Spirit.
Right.
So I'm not trying to imitate the guy. I'm not trying to do one for one, but I'm trying to kind of act like I'm Lou Fine or Wally Wood or Jack Cole back in the the 40s and 50s, doing the original Spirit story, doing things that were, you look at the Wally Wood Spirit, it's light years away from the Will Eisner Spirit, but it's the same model, it's the same
Right.
character. I'm trying to think of it like that.
Yeah, I mean that comes through. It definitely, when you look at this book, it does feel like it's hearkening back to an older style of art, which is great. I think I was talking to you, Donovan, about like you just don't see art like this anymore. We were flipping through some old comic, and I'm just like, you just don't see it. But you do see it in this, though.
Oh, that's huge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it very much feels like something from the 40s, and also I think, your art in it is probably the main reason for that. But also, I think Brennan's colors have that nostalgic kind of vibe to them as well.
Brennan is just killing it on the colors. I just saw the colors for this scene from the next issue, and the whole issue takes place in this very like warm, fiery, oppressive, choky area, and when the Spirit shows up, Brennan just. I mean, he's just this explosion of like this amazing heroic blue with his red tie flying. He just cuts through the scene. Brennan has this amazing ability to take, my modest efforts and just animate them. Like when I looked at the first issue, I thought this looks like a Bruce Timm cartoon. This really looks good.
I actually was going to ask about that because
That is one of the highest compliments I think you could probably get. Is like, holy crap! Did Bruce Timm help with this?
I think Brennan.
It's the highest compliment I could possibly bestow upon myself.
Yes.
I think Brennan
Those are the
mentioned
important ones.
that somebody had referenced that though in a review or something.
That is
of it,
true.
'cause-
Somebody did. Somebody called it Spirit, the animated series.
Yeah. Did that ever cross your mind as you
sure.
were doing it? The Bruce Timm influence.
Well, Bruce Timm, the artists that I sort of copied when I was, because I have no formal art education.
Oh, okay.
I took high school art classes. That's about it.
A good interview might have asked you about that earlier. But
We did. We're adding it back in. The artists that I really took liberally from were Mike Mignola, obviously, because
Sure.
everybody does that,
Right.
and Bruce Timm, which everybody also does. Come to think of it, so I'm very aware of the Bruce Timm influence. But whereas I think a lot of artists fall short, a lot of amateur artists fall short because they learn how to do a really good Bruce Timm and they stop there.
right.
I kind of took Bruce Timm, and then from there I learned about Jack Kirby and Harvey Kurtzman and so
Right.
forth. I looked at Mike Mignola, and from there I looked at some, like I found Egon Shelley, the turn of the century painter who did
Right.
those awesome figures that inspired Peter Chung on Aeon Flux and all that. And then from there I got to Aeon Flux.
Right.
So I was able to use these influences as springboards, and that I think mean that when I go back to a more animated Bruce Timm kind of look, because the stuff I do on Spirit is not necessarily what I do at Rest. The stuff I do at Rest tends to be a little bit creepier, a little more crepuscular, and angly and whatnot.
Good use of the word crepuscular. Holy crap!
Thanks.
Because looking at this and then looking at San Hannibal, I mean, they don't. I mean, it's still you, but yeah, there is definitely a difference.
You're right. The spirit is much better than San Hannibal. No, that was obviously me making an attempt to be kind of funny, but it's also true. As I said, I have no formal art education, but once a week, I meet up with Matt, sometimes at his home in West Lynn, sometimes at Brennan's studio in Southeast Portland, and I lay out all the pages that I've done that week. And especially at the beginning, he showed me how to use a light box, which I'd never used before, to figure out how to get the figures just right. He showed me how to use different kinds of pens and pencils. He does a lot of don't do it this way, do it this way.
You say you have no formal training, but you know what this sounds like is an apprenticeship.
Well, now I in the
You're Daniel San. That's what you are.
I like to say that in the 6 months I've been working with Matt, I am like 4 years better an artist I am than I started.
Well, because I mean, Matt obviously an incredible writer, but an amazing artist as well.
Absolutely,
I mean,
and he's an artist who he draws like a writer. He draws with storytelling as the thing that is of paramount importance. And, there are some writer-artists who really write for a splashy moment. There are writer-artists who just don't know how to write. And that's not a sin.
I've read a couple of those, I think,
Right?
yeah.
But writing is more than just putting words over images. Writing is about rhythm. It's about sacrificing, sacrificing what you might want to indulgently do for what needs to happen for the story. And I don't think there's anybody who does that better than Matt. Domestically, there's probably some French dude who's just way better.
No, I mean, I think that's why I'm so drawn to some of his works. Like, one of my earliest comic book memories is finding Mage at the public library and just being like, what is this magical book I have discovered? And just like the storytelling there,
Oh,
visually and like in the more prosic stuff is just like, I've totally absorption into a story is something he excels at.
It's so funny sitting next to him at conventions now, because just everybody comes up, Mage was the first comic I ever read, or, Grendel's what got me back into comics, Mage, Grendel.
Yeah.
Sandman Mystery, that Mage, Grendel. And everybody asks about when Mage 3 is coming out.
Oh, sure.
I pointedly did not.
You did. I
When I saw him
appreciate
at
that.
Rose City, yeah.
Well, at the end of the first day, I was finishing up a commission, and I kind of leaned back in my chair and went over to him like, "Oh, Matt, hey, so Mage 3, when's He was amused in a way that indicated that if I pushed the joke anymore, maybe he wouldn't be amused any longer.
I mean, yeah. You talked about that, but I mean, how is that to go from this guy who is one of your biggest influences to now you're a peer, a collaborator, even? I mean, with him,
Collaborator, maybe. Peer, let's give me a couple decades to get there.
Sure.
But no,
From our shoes, it looks like you're a peer. I mean, that's the thing.
Well,
is
from our shoes, anyone making comics is a
no, but I mean, his writing and your art are cut from the same cloth. It looks like when we're reading it. So that's what's
Yes.
coming through. Whether or not you feel that way might be different.
Well,
but
that's really cool to
From
hear.
our opinion, it's definitely there.
Well, I do feel like we vibe on a lot of things. I think that, I mean, when it's just him and me, going over the pages, we will review the art for maybe 15 minutes, and then there'll be like another 20 minutes where we talk about, Philip Jose Farmer books or things like that. Like we're a very similar simpatico kind of nerd. Don't tell my boss I called him a nerd. But no, I've come to really respect Matt. I've come to have some confidence in bringing up my own ideas when I think it'll serve the story better. Because I'm all about just getting out of the way and letting the story work.
Right.
I think I'm far more of a midwife than a mother.
okay.
But every single time I wake up and I check my email, it's like, you have a message from Matt Wagner. I'm like, ooh, Matt Wagner. 6 going on 7 months I've been working with this guy. It's still so cool. It's the coolest job I've ever had. My next job cannot be as cool as this.
Right.
I would.
So you're saying it's only downhill from here?
I would have to be like the writer artist on the Doom Patrol with covers by Brian Boland or something. That's the only way. Yeah. And eat that up.
I just don't hear a lot of Doom Patrol references. Is all.
Well, I tend not to make them because they tend not to land.
You're on the right podcast.
I was going to say, this is the show. Doom Patrol was the other choice of title, potentially, aside from Panel on Panels. No.
That'd be an amazing title for a podcast.
It would, yeah. So you talk about, you're all about the story. Is writing something you really want to do more of?
Oh, absolutely.
Eventually? I mean, do you see yourself as a writer-artist sort of going forward?
Well, yeah, I spent a lot of time learning how to write. I think I've got an ability for it, and I've learned a lot about it from working with Matt's scripts. And so I have some writing opportunities coming up, and already the work that I've done on those, I've felt a level up a little bit. It's like I look at San Hannibal and I really like it. I'm proud of it. But there's things where I see, this transition's a little clunky, or there's not really a lot going on in this scene, or we needed a little more on this character. And that isn't something that I feel shame from. That's something I kind of feel excited about,
right?
Because I know the next one's going to be better.
Yeah.
There's nothing more satisfying, I think, creatively about looking back at your past work and saying, like, yeah, that was okay, but I know I'm capable of accomplishing something greater now, and that's so exciting.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine how heartbreaking it might be. Hopefully, I never have to experience this. To go like, how did I do that? That was so much better than what I'm doing.
Yeah. One of my favorite pieces of advice comes out of a screenwriting book. Tom Lennon, Robert Ben Garant's book about screenwriting. They talk about it in that. They're like, here's how here's how you get better at being a screenwriter. It's like, go write a movie. Okay, now you've done that. Write another movie, and write another one, and another one, and another one. Now read that first one. Isn't it terrible?
That's the thing. It breaks my heart when younger people or just people think I'm older than I am. I'm 25. People think I'm like 32 because I drink a lot of coffee and I'm Czech, so I'm not aging well. And
you're well preserved for your age.
Thank you. And also, like I'm working on the spirit, and I wear pants that go all the way to my ankles, and just people, I look kind of like an adult. So
isn't that a horrible feeling?
I will say you were one of the snappiest dressed people at Rose City that I saw amongst the creators.
Well, I like to show up for work, you know? And so people will ask me for some advice and so forth. And when I ask them, what is it you want to write? What are you working on? And they say, well, I see the first volume as being like, no. 5 pages.
Yeah.
You will be able to complete 5 pages of work. And then if you do that, then you have the sense of accomplishment for having actually finished something. You have something finished you can show people. You have something finished you can look back on. You don't have, a 3-volume graphic novel where the first stories suck. And then you're bound to those bad stories you wrote? No. How did we get on this?
I don't know.
Well,
but
it comes down to a quote I always like to say from Zoe Washburn from Trinity is, talking ain't doing.
Talking ain't doing.
That's
I
true.
like that.
That is true.
But yes, so the willingness to fail is so important in a creative field, especially the field of comics, which is kind of it is one of the more thankless corners of the entertainment industry. You really have to love it. That, by the way, is
You're talking to podcast hosts.
Oh yeah, I feel like
we do at least an hour every week about.
But there's somebody. Somebody recently said, said to me that I really want to make this movie, but I feel like I can't get the funding together, so I'll just do a comic and then make a movie off of that. I'm like, yeah, sure, just do a comic.
Yeah, but I hear this all the time now. I do hear a lot of people go like, "Yeah, well, I'm turning it into a graphic novel, and then I'll take that in and sell." It's like, okay, it's gonna suck. And I've read comics that have been like that are like
with the
basically
express
pitching,
purpose of pitching a movie,
and
basically.
they suck.
Yeah, of
They
course
do.
they do.
Because you have to. It goes back to the, artists who attempt to be writers and don't have the skills. You need the skills.
Right.
It's a specific thing you need to do.
Absolutely. Cool. So you're doing The Spirit now.
Yeah. Shit.
How long you guys do? Or do you have a certain number of issues that you're?
Yeah, we're going to be doing this story for 12 issues.
Cool.
I'm drawing the 6th right now, so we're halfway there, and 4th came out today.
Cool.
Maybe more after that. We'll see.
Oh, awesome. Cool. So I think that'll kind of wrap up that segment. But now we turn to one of my favorite segments we do when we have a guest on the show.
Okay.
Which is we turn now to Weird Questions with Donovan Eilert.
All right.
Okay, I just need, honest opinions here, answers. There's no wrong answers,
Okay.
I guess. If you could go back in time and replace an archaeologist at a dig, what dinosaur would you like to discover most? Like, be known for discovering?
I hate this question.
Why do you hate this
This
question?
is the worst question. I want to find the Iceman.
The Iceman.
Yeah, I would love to have been one of the people who was like, "There's a body."
I'm not saying
From
one of the
before
people. It's
Christ.
you're the person.
I'm the person.
You're like in textbooks next to the Iceman.
I don't want to be known for. That's not what I'm passionate about. I'm an artist. I don't.
Well, you get to do
I don't
both.
Get something.
You
I get
do
to do both.
famous artist and
Found the
archaeologist.
Iceman.
That's not
Note, also a
realistic.
great artist.
It's real. It is in
That's-
this universe. It is real.
In the Weird Questions universe, almost anything's possible.
That is a terrifying universe, the Weird Questions universe.
See, that's
Tim Sale has walrus burgers.
That's right,
There-
Tim Sale. Tim Sale. So, yeah, that's right. At least you didn't get the walrus burger question like Tim Sale.
Okay, next question.
Okay, next question. Yeah.
What is your preferred bagel?
Bagel. Mm-hmm. I like this bagel that has chives and sea salt on it.
Chives and sea salt? And then do you put any toppings on it, like any spreads or smears or anything?
You can. You can put some hummus on it. It's pretty nice. Or you can just eat that thing like a donut. And it's
There you go.
really solid.
Warm?
If you want. That's the thing. It's very versatile.
Okay.
It's good 9 ways.
Chives and sea salt. All right. Great. And then the final question is, what TV theme song do you think you have stuck in your head the most?
That would be the theme to the Rockford Files.
Okay. Nice. Nice. That is a very honorable answer.
I get a sense you're very interested in some kind of past things. I feel like with the detective stuff,
Nostalgic.
With Rockford, not necessarily what I expect a 25-year-old to be. The Rockford Files, awesome, but
No, I can't really control what I'm going to like,
right,
and it just comes from all over the place.
Sure.
yeah,
But I'm also very picky. So normally, what is contained within one decade probably isn't going to have everything I like.
Sure.
You're talking to a guy who spent most of high school with people going, what? The hell are you talking about?
I think all of us here at this table.
John,
Yeah.
just because you brought up match games so much, you cannot put the blame on us.
I'm not kidding. My ringtone is the theme to Match Game. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Cool. So we turn now to our recommendation segment where we recommend comics we think you should be reading. We always like to start with our guest. Dan, is there anything you think people should be checking out right now?
Yeah, I think everybody should read Shudder by Joe Keating and Layla
so
Del
good.
Duca.
Yeah.
Really gorgeous book. They just did an issue that people will inevitably compare, if they haven't already, to the end of Grant Morrison's Animal Man.
Oh.
Where, it becomes very metatextual. And that has been done to death. People do it badly. It becomes lazy. It becomes this pretentious grab for some sort of profundity. And it's done so well in this latest issue. It's great. Black Canary at DC right now.
Oh.
Annie Wu's drawn it. Oh, I love Annie Wu so much.
She's taking over for Fiona Staples on Archie. coming
Is
up.
she?
Yeah.
I'm into
that's
that.
the word. So
I mean, no bones on Fiona Staples,
No, of
but
course.
I love Annie.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in. Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
There's other good stuff out there.
Yeah, there's a
I'm
lot.
sure.
I mean, it's a
Will
great
Eisner's
time.
The Spirit. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, I've heard that.
If you're one of the 9 people who's really into the pulp character The Avenger and wants to read a comic that's written in the style of the old pulp novels The Avenger, Mark Waid's Justice Incorporated The Avenger is quite good.
Awesome. Cool.
For the 9 of you out there.
I guarantee they probably listen to this show.
And they're probably not the people who got that Portland bar
Right.
through I was doing earlier. I'm just guessing.
I think that's probably a safe bet.
So that's me.
Cool. Gorgani, what do you got?
I've got a book that I picked up a while back at PAX. It is Letter 44 from Oni Press.
Yeah.
It's written by Charles Sewell, and the art is by Alberto Jimenez Albuquerque. I hope I'm saying that name right. Letter 44 is about the 44th president, Stephen Blades, which is an awesome name for a president.
Yes, it is.
Basically, he's getting into office. He's getting a letter from the previous president saying, hey, just FYI, there are aliens out beyond the asteroid belt. They may or may not be building a super weapon to blow up the Earth. Good luck. And then also, by the way, there's a ship that we sent years ago that's going out there to investigate. They might just about be there by now. And then
awesome.
this president having to deal with that. It also follows the crew of the ship that's going out to investigate this weird alien thing that's happening. The ship's called the Clark, which always love an Arthur C. Clarke reference.
Yeah, of course.
But it's
There was one on the show.
That's true. But it's an awesome book. It's like part political thriller, part like crazy out there sci-fi. So it's a combination of a lot of things that I love. I've read the first trade so far. I'm pretty sure. Is there another one out?
There's
now?
2 out, yeah.
There's 2 out now. So I need to pick up the second one. Awkward. So.
I guess.
Well, I like picking up all of the books of the things that I like.
Me too.
The fact that I didn't know there was a second trade is a little awkward for me.
Hey,
That's
there's
why
a lot
I say,
of comics out there.
yeah, and I like to own them all.
There's a couple.
there is a few.
There are a few.
So yeah, Letter 44.
It's a cool comic,
is
yeah.
a really
It's
cool
really
comic.
awesome.
I highly recommend.
Donovan, what do you got?
Cool. I'd like to recommend The Defenders by Matt Fraction, specifically with the Terry Dodson art, which I think
That was
know
a
that
great book.
that is a really fun book. And I was told recently that it got a lot of flack, and I don't know why. The first volume starts off, if people don't know, the original Defenders were Doctor Strange, Hulk, and Namor, and then they added Silver Surfer. And in this iteration, Hulk shows up and commissions the other 3 to stop Null, the Destroyer of Worlds, because Hulk has kind of set him loose, and he's like, hey, you need to stop him, and I can't be there. And so they're like, oh, well, thank you very much. And then they grab Red She-Hulk and Iron Fist, which I'm a big Iron Fist fan.
Oh, nice.
And so they go on this quest to the Isle of Dr. Moreau, and all these kind of crazy, awesome things happen to stop somebody from destroying a world. And so
What you're saying, Null, the Destroyer of Worlds, destroys worlds.
he's working on it, at least. And the Defenders, one of my favorite lines in the second issue is they're on the island and people are trying to take him out, and they're like, intruders, and Namor's like, nope, defenders. And they're like, fine, we'll kill the defenders. Anyways, it's pretty awesome. So again, I really like Matt Fraction.
That
his
line
work
in
on
particular
that.
screams Fraction.
Oh yeah,
Like
totally.
that.
And I don't really like Namor usually, but in this,
Imperious Rex!
yeah, he's the worst. But in this comic, he plays the part he needs to, and
He has his moments.
He's pretty. He works really well. So
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a really fun run. I think there's 12 issues, and
That's what, 2 trades?
it's 2 trades.
Who can't
yeah,
afford
and
that?
people should read it, even if they read bad reviews online, which I don't know who's writing those. So
Cool. So
John, what do you got?
I'm late on the bandwagon of this comic.
I know what you're gonna recommend them. So.
But-
Rachel Rising.
The
Donovan's
running joke
always
is
talking
that
about
I always
Rachel
talk
Rising.
about that every episode for like an hour.
But
the Terry.
Oh, Terry Moore.
Yeah.
Have you read
Terry
any of
Moore.
that stuff?
Oh, yeah, it's good.
My
It's
gosh,
really good.
I just
Let's talk about it.
talk about it. All right.
we've already done how many episodes where you've talked about
We're
it?
gonna tally it up. It's gonna be like a 4-hour super special, of me just gushing.
But no,
about-
like I said, I'm
Alright,
late
what
to
do you
the
got?
party on this, but it's Lumberjanes.
Oh, yeah, Lumberjanes. Awesome.
It's I mean, and they won the Eisner. Like it's amazing. But-
Deservedly so.
Yeah, Shannon Waters, Grace Ellis, and Noelle Stevenson doing Lumberjanes. It's super fun. It feels like a Saturday morning cartoon show, but like the best kind. I mean,
I forget the girl's name, but the blonde girl with like the big pomp, she's my spirit animal.
But yeah, it's about these like plucky, awesome, adventuresome girls in this summer camp for. It's kind of vague, but like a Girl Scout sort of thing, but an outdoorsy group, and they're always ditching their counselor and stuff who's supposed to be watching out for them, and then they get into weird sort of supernatural or paranormal adventures, and it's so much fun. It's really exciting and funny, and it's man.
One of the team, I think it's Shannon. I'm on a panel with her at Vegas Valley Comic Fest in November,
cool.
along with Faith Erin Hicks and Jen Vandemeter, and I'm petrified because these are three of the most talented women in comics right now. One of them whom literally just won an Eisner, and I've drawn the spirit for a bit. And I did San Hannibal.
Yeah, don't forget that. We met some of them at
all of them.
Yeah, we met all of them.
You
at
met
Rose.
the Lumberjanes?
We met the Lumberjanes
at Rose City. It reminds me a lot of Gravity Falls. If you listen to this and you watch that show, we're big fans of that.
And
show.
I've actually heard them mention that in interviews. That
I mean,
show.
it's definitely. There's. I don't know who came first and what the influence was, but it just. I like where this is headed. I like
I
where.
think they were more or less concurrent.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, and this is also big into this. I love this sort of trend now where there's all these. Marvel's really doing a good job with this. Like teenage girls who are superheroes or heroes in other ways.
Oh yeah,
Stuff.
women of all. I mean, Miss Marvel obviously fantastic, but also the Unbeatable Squirrel
I was just going to say Unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
Awesome.
Yeah.
John Yor. Barnes & Noble did not have it today. I was very disappointed.
Yeah.
We heard about it in the car.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, those were the two I was going to mention. Were Miss Marvel and Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. But yeah, I mean that there are comics that are appealing to everybody now. I mean, not just that, but I mean,
Oh man, and the Kate Bishop Hawkeye stories
Yes.
that Fraction did.
Yes.
when that was coming out, that was my favorite comic.
mm-hmm.
The
Mine too.
with Annie Wu drawn it. Oh man,
The LA Woman arc, the third
Yeah.
trade of Hawkeye is so freaking good.
West Coast Avenger.
Yeah.
Oh, that was,
So much fun. Yeah, I mean, I mean, we've commended Marvel for doing a lot
who
of
did
that.
that first Kate and LA story? Was that Polito or Marcos Martin?
Oh God,
I don't know either.
Useless to me.
It's one of those
I
guys.
can't know all of the artists.
It's
I
that
try.
it's that classic thing of like we always talk about, like, as a comic book fan, you'll be talking to somebody and they'll know some they're like, oh, you're into comics? Did you read this? It's like, no, I don't know what this. I thought you were into comics. Yeah, not every comic.
It's less of a Venn diagram and more of a game of Twister.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that, and that's a fair point to go out on for this episode. I think you've summed up comic
Right
fandom.
hand fraction.
Also, incidentally, I'm sorry I said I hated the dinosaur question.
No, that's all right. Which also, backtracking just a second, you said you worked on a Dark Horse Presents book with Brennan.
That's right.
Was that Dinosaur Fish Police?
It was not.
Okay.
It was not. I'd love to have Fish Police BC. I think.
Fish
Oh,
Police
that's
BC,
what it was.
right.
Yeah,
you
I'd
talked
love
about
to have that in my bibliography, but
We were
I did
that
not.
captured our imagination on this show when he brought that up.
You're the ones, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow. Yeah. Cool. So, Dan, is there? I mean, obviously the spirit's out there, and people can pick it up in comic book stores all over the place. Is there anything else you want to promote? Do you have a web presence or anything?
Just my Twitter, Dan Schkade at Dan Schkade. And I'm doing a Quantum and Woody story in
Awesome.
Valiant's Unity number 50, which comes out in December.
Nice.
And that James Asmus is writing that. So
Cool.
that'll be a good time.
Yeah. I don't think enough people talk about the Valiant books.
They don't. I love their sales model of what if we took these properties from the 90s and just threw money and talent at them and see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Only DC could figure that out.
Oh, well, one thing I want to get in before we go,
Uh-huh.
I love working for Dynamite. And it goes back to earlier when we were talking about just how much enthusiasm matters, seeing that light in people's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamite just really gives a shit about comics. They've got a new editor in there, a gal named Rachel, who's now an assistant editor, an associate editor. I can't remember which. But she's worked for Marvel. She's worked for DC. She's just so light speed talented. I know I'm going to be working for her in 3 years somewhere. but she could also be doing something other than comics, you know.
Right.
But she just has a passion for it. Everybody there has a passion for it. They, you know, there's kind of this hipster, too cool for school attitude with a lot of comic fans right there, and Dynamite's just not about that. I love that.
No, and talk about also taking a bunch of older characters and throwing money and talent at them. I mean,
Well,
wow.
talent anyway.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
the-
but I mean, yeah. I've enjoyed so many of their books. The Green Hornet stuff, or the Shadow, or any of
the
that.
Green, that was some good books.
Yes.
Also the Shadow.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that DC had the Spirit license for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamite has it now because Nick Barucci, the president of Dynamite, he wanted to do something really cool with the Spirit, and he made he lobbied hard for it. He went to the license holders and just opened his wrists, and they that's what Dynamite's all about.
Well, and he so fits in with with the comics they've been doing. I mean, it totally makes sense that the Spirit is at Dynamite.
That's where he belongs.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, for now. You can't contain the Spirit forever. So cool. And of course, you can find us. We're on Twitter. We're at Panel on Panels. We're also on Facebook as Panel on Panels. I'll run through this list like I always do. We're on Instagram, Pinterest.
You guys are on Pinterest?
I think
Technically,
so. That's what they tell me.
if you'd like to getting more personal contact with us, you can email us at panelonpanels@gmail.com.
Yep.
I got to get on Pinterestgram.
Pinterestgram.
Whatever it
Yeah,
is.
Pinterestgram.
Pinterestgram. Right
Yeah.
on.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
One-stop shop.
Eventually,
Yeah.
they're all going to blend together, right? It has to.
Just all going to be Halliburton.
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. So that wraps it up for this week. For Panel of Panels, I've been John Campbell.
I am currently Mike Gergoni.
And I will always be Donovan Eilert.
Keep reading comics, everybody.